Eu sou a Aymara Limma e eu estou aqui para apresentar para vocês mais uma edição da segunda temporada do Cine Arte Variety. Wow, what an honor to be here with you.
Thank you.
I loved your play. Right from the beginning, just like walking through, it's just such an experience. Eu estou aqui com a diretora de teatro, YANA ROSS. Ela é muito premiada, tem um currículo espetacular. Fez um espetáculo aqui em Venezia ontem que foi aplaudido por muitos e muitos minutos e foi muito emocionante. Agora a gente vai conversar com ela. Thank you so much for giving us your time, and especially we are in the set.
Yes,
of the
we're
play.
in the house.
Yes.
So I don't know if you can leave now. You have to be part of the show.
Sounds really interesting because I was always curious, like, wow, the transformation in the house.
You get a cowboy hat and you're in.
The David Foster Wallace first published this romance, this play in 1999.
Yes.
Do you think today we still have more or less Hideous Men?
I think when he was writing more than 20 years ago, he was a visionary. You know, he saw something in the future that was coming, and he was signaling through his language where we're going. And I find his stories and his world really futuristic, because in 1996, one of the stories was from 96, and he talks about future of sex, that we will be only interested like hard date and soft date, and a soft date, it means practical, kind of only for making a child, that you are going to the government office and get a permission, and it's really not interesting anymore. So the hard sex is the hard date is really your world in the virtual reality, and all your senses and all the digital stimulation is where we're going. And here we are 20 years later living it in a way. And of course he's making fun of it, and he's very ironic, and he's very dark, and it's a concentrate of course, the hideousness, the toxic masculinity. He plays with it, and we play with it also from various gender perspectives. We often flip it, and the text that is said by a man, now said by a woman, is often uncanny. It makes you feel like, why is she saying this about the men? What does it mean if the men shave their legs or they wear heels? What does she... It's strangely transgressive. You know, we're used to this kind of sexism from the men, but when the sexism comes from a woman, it's shocking.
It's still a little masculine, machism.
Yeah, machism, yeah, of course. And it's really, it's a perspective. How do you shift the perspective to start seeing it again? So to see men's behavior, often if you put it on women, then it sounds like you hear it for the first time. That's why we play with this gender games in a way in the show.
Yeah, and I love it.
I think
we love it. We women.
Cowboys are kind of feminine and emasculated, and the women are like hijacking these ugly traits of men, and it's really a game in a way. We're really playing with things. We're not. Let's say we don't take responsibility that this is how it is in reality, but we exaggerate it. We really play with grotesque. We really play with absurd. We really push this kind of absurd and comic in this.
And how did you expect what do you want the public to react?
Honestly, I respect the public to make in a way their own story. So we don't tell a linear beginning, middle, and end. We don't want any kind of lesson, or we don't push for one solution. Let's say we say that everyone has their own experience, and also when we deal with violence, when we deal with sexual violence, I am not in the position to imagine what each person in the audience had in their lives. So it's a responsibility of everyone how they see and how they create their own narrative when they watch the performance. So in a way, there is very open way to interpret, and I think people come out and they see different things, which I really like.
You have done Ibsen, Chekhov, so many classics. Why David Foster Wallace now?
Honestly, I find Wallace also in a way a classic. He is a big writer with a big universe. He also, in his youth and the way he made his path as a writer, he was always fascinated by Dostoevsky, by DeLillo, by Roth, by big writers, and he says something that I think will find its place in history of literature. And somehow, for me, it's not a big jump from Chekhov to Wallace. There is a connection somehow in the way these writers think. So I feel quite at home going back and forth. So he's just a big genius, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have done so much. You have performed your plays, many plays around the world. Like, you have an exceptional curriculum. Like, how did you start?
I started quite late. I think maybe the answer to my clear path is that I had like cat with 9 lives. One of the lives I had in New York, I worked in film and television, and I came to a point on September 11 in New York, where I was part of a film crew, and we ended up on this day working and filming this disaster. And I realized that I don't want to work with the camera anymore, in a way that I said everything I could say through the lens. And I, like many New Yorkers, people were in real crisis. What is the meaning of what you do? And I really took the time to find myself again. And so when I decided to make theater, to study theater, I was already 28 or 29, so I kind of came to it late and consciously, and I really decided I'm not going to work too much. I don't want to assist, I don't want to, I kind of make a very narrow path of what I want to do, and it was really my big desire to move through cultures, to really not to run a theater, not to have my own company. I kind of knew what I didn't want to do. And then
at 28.
Yeah, by
That's
the time I was 30, I think 30, 31, when I like started in New York with 2 performances, and then I got invitation to work in Europe, and I really pushed hard to work in big state institutions so I could have access to public funding, so I could have this big ensemble of actors. And then I really kind of cultivated this relationship of making a home in this theater so I can go back and connect with the actors. And it feeds my inspiration and feeds my work, this like a shift. I have to shift from culture to culture. So I learn something, I always go into local society, I get to know history, and then I listen. I let my collaborators, I let the actors bring the stories and kind of channel the classic material through their own history. And that is still very inspiring. So I'm hoping to keep on this track, that the work has meaning, the work has also interpersonal relationships, that these people are feeling they are very much part of the creation and they are co-creators and not just there to fulfill the part.
That's beautiful, and we can see that. I think it transpass.
That's great.
You can feel the
But
connection
they own
between
the
them.
performance, yeah.
And also, it's just like a little gesture, but when at the end, when people were clapping and you were just like, you had this little walk and saying,
on the side,
it's
yes,
theirs.
it's them,
Yeah.
it's theirs. Yeah.
And it was like, no, it's you.
No, it's really, I'm always grateful and always surprised how much the actors create, how they collaborate, how they build these relationships between something that is almost supernatural. You know, they channel things in a way that we don't always have access to. It's really cool.
How do you choose your actors?
Intuition, I would say. Of course, I try to work in houses that I respect and I like the quality of the work, so I see them, and I think I've never really done any auditions. I don't understand this kind of process. I just see them in performance and I see what they can do, and then I work with them.
That's beautiful. In today they say in cinema that they complain that there's not many women, there's difficult space for women. How is it in theater?
We live in a man-made world still. We have become more and more conscious how where the weak points are. But I think it's also this consciousness in the society makes things obvious, and the more we are aware, the more we point our finger where things are not right, the more chance we have to change it. So of course, theater world is no exception. It's also quite masculine. When I started, and still very often, I am the only female artist in the house, but it has never stopped me from questioning why and what am I doing. I do it and then I can reflect. But I also very consciously work with the young generation on finding this balance and to make sure that the female voices are equally heard as other voices. Yes.
How would you give an advice for all those artists that are starting and wanted to find their voice, their way?
I think it's a bit of a, what do you call it, paradox, that you, on one hand, you have to listen to your mentors and people with experience, and at the same time you have to listen to your own voice and your intuition. And that's very delicate balance of where to trust a mentor and where to stick to your guns and follow your intuition. And I think the more you work, the more you get confident with your own voice.
What's theater for you?
Society, people, and change.
And the last question, which should be the first, not the first. How was the process for you to create this show?
To be honest, this was very, very special because we started during COVID pandemic, and the work stopped a few times physically because we could not progress. We were working with masks, and I realized that suddenly I don't feel my profession anymore because I read non-verbal signs. You know, I read actors as a full instrument, the full body, the face, and signals, and the mask took everything away, and we had to stop because I felt completely disabled, and I couldn't understand this. We couldn't really communicate, so there were these moments where we stopped, and then things automatically developed in different directions, and I felt I have to change the stories that I selected in the first place. So it was a long but very, very satisfying process. So by the time we knew what we wanted to say, it was spring, we could work without mask, it was a lot of sunshine, and we were full of passion and energy for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It was such a,
Thank
you're
you.
such a wonderful person. So beautiful. So
Thank you.
Where
I
do
wish
you-
you luck with
Thank you. I wish you
yes.
also. Gostaram? Nós também. Então vocês já sabem, na próxima edição a gente vai falar mais ainda de Bienal de Teatro de Veneza, com entrevistas maravilhosas que eu consegui fazer aqui, vocês vão adorar. Não percam. Cine Arte Variety, comigo, Aymara Limma, aqui no VRT Channel.